Starting out, we really just wanted to thank you for spending some time with us. This is really a transformational project for our city, and it is going to involve substantial public input into how it looks. And we are right at the beginning stages of that. And so we really wanted to bring you in now, tell you, remind you again about where we've been with this project, the reason why we pursued this project, and then talk a little bit about some upcoming public engagement sessions where the community is going to be able to provide some input on what this project looks like. We have three upcoming public meetings. The upcoming public meetings, the first of which will be on Thursday, December 5th from 6 to 7:30. This will be at the Toledo School for the Arts. The second one will be at the Mott Branch Library on Tuesday, December 10th from 5:30 to 7. And the third will be on Thursday, December 12th from 5:30 to 7 at the Jefferson Center. These three meetings are being held separately, although the same content will be shared at each meeting with a little bit of a focus for each on each specific area for the project. So the Toledo School for the Arts will maybe look a little bit more at the Adams Street corridor. The Mott Branch Library session will look more at the Junction and Englewood portion of this project, and the Jefferson Center will look at the larger Uptown um, um, portion of this project. So we have three upcoming meetings. You know, you all as key stakeholders in our community, I think, have broad networks and can help us get this message out about these upcoming public meetings. And so we wanted to first start out by saying, you know, help us get the word out to your networks about this upcoming meeting and the Raise Grant website where you can sign up for project alerts. We will have an online survey posted on the website as well, where community members, if you're unable to join the public meeting, will be able to offer input on the plan through the online survey portal. So we strongly encourage you to attend or at least respond to the online survey. And we'll dive a little bit more into this process at the end of the presentation, but this is really the first part of this process where we're going to be listening to the community um, on what they'd like to see as a part of this project. We will then take what we learn from these meetings, go back over the next few months to incorporate those into some concepts. And then our goal would be to have three additional public meetings come February to present the concepts based on the feedback that we heard from these initial public meetings and get some confirmation or some proposed revisions to those plans. So thank you again for joining us today, and thank you again for helping us get the word out. We've done a lot of engagement and outreach. This flyer that you see on the screen was mailed to just about everyone in the project area. We also did door-to-door deliveries as well. We'll have some press releases coming the week of the community events. But again, any assistance that you can provide in helping us get the word out would be greatly appreciated. So next, I'd like to transition into the why of the project, how this started, what is the Raise Grant, and give you a deep dive into the project and what you can expect coming in the next few years. This project really started from an economic development plan. That's why I, as the economic development director for the city of Toledo, helped spearhead this project on behalf of the city. When you look at the regional and community plans that have been done in this community, from our comprehensive economic development strategy to our comprehensive plan through the city of Toledo and our new downtown master plan, all of these plans reference the need for us to diversify our economic base, which will help us grow and attract new companies to the city. We talk a lot about trying to create knowledge-based jobs. So how do we diversify from our manufacturing core and create kind of those high-tech sectors? They also identify the need to establish an incubation or an innovation center within the downtown area and looking broadly at a larger innovation district around it. So, what is an innovation district? Well, it's an emerging urban model where leading edge anchor institutions and companies cluster and connect with startups, incubators, accelerators. They are typically physically compact, transit accessible, technically wired, and offer mixed use housing, office, and retail. This is the formal definition from the Brookings Institute. And I think it does a really good job of it explaining all of the different things that go into an innovation district. It's not just businesses, it's also community, it's also housing, it's also culture that makes these innovation districts successful. They go a step further to define, what is economic assets, networking assets, and physical assets. But essentially, it's designing an area of your city where all three of these things can come together and naturally occur on a regular basis. So it's not just creating the incubator, it's creating the incubator with really high performing public spaces that encourage that engagement. And so this is an interesting picture of how those things can come together according to the Brookings Institute. But Toledo's not the only one thinking about this. Innovation districts have actually been established all throughout the state of Ohio and the United States. Back a few years ago, Jobs Ohio invested a significant amount of money in establishing three innovation districts in Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. They have partnered with their anchor institutions within those cities and helped create a larger district that really channels new workforce development opportunities and innovations for their respective industries. We in Toledo have competed and been successfully awarded a Ohio Innovation Hub grant from the state of Ohio. Toledo was actually the first city to be awarded this grant, and it really is to help focus our efforts on glass innovation and manufacturing here in the Toledo region. And so you can see we are moving towards this model of thinking about innovation collectively through our core industries, primarily in glass. All of those industries and companies came together through what's called the Northwest Ohio Innovation Consortium, which led this application, but certainly has a great implication for the innovation district that we are proposing within the Uptown area. This plan really was fueled by the investment in the Jefferson Center, now known the Toledo Innovation Center. As many of you know, this is a $40 million redevelopment of what was a vacant, abandoned post office building in the Uptown area. We have been working very hard to fill this space with innovation type companies and workforce development opportunities in the wake of the Bitwise bankruptcy and announcement. But it was originally anticipated that this building would be home to a company called Bitwise Industries, where Bitwise, which was a tech company, would not only do their tech services in this building, but would also perform workforce development opportunities for individuals looking to become a part of the knowledge economy. They would train people typically not included in the innovation industry, give them skills that they need to learn how to code, and ultimately hire them on full time or create a pipeline for talent for other companies in the region that need those coding skills. So this combined things that we are very passionate about that be a part of the Toledo Innovation District, which is workforce development, helping upskill our workers to take more knowledge-based jobs while also kind of creating an innovation type center within that framework. With Bitwise leaving, we have been working very hard to fill this space and work with our partners to activate this space and fulfill the mission of the Toledo Innovation Center, which I will be very pleased and excited to share those announcements after the first of the year with some pretty successful companies that have committed to this space. But the Toledo Innovation Center is complete, and this is intended to be the anchor of what is envisioned to be a much larger area for the innovation district. So you can see here in the middle of your screen, that is where the Toledo Innovation Center is. This is looking east towards downtown Toledo from essentially what is the Toledo Museum of Art. As we looked at the area around the Innovation Center, it started to become more clear about the opportunities that might be available. As you can see here in yellow, this area is primarily comprised of the Uptown neighborhood. The Uptown Master Plan looked at the land utilization within the Uptown neighborhood, and as you can see, more than 60% of the area within Uptown is dedicated to surface parking lots and open green space. We can feel this when we drive or walk through Uptown. There's seems to be a lot of open space, and we see that as an opportunity with this innovation district to activate it with new uses and support new infill development to support this mixed use, mixed income neighborhood that will be the innovation district. We partnered with a number of institutions and key stakeholders to move forward through the Toledo Social Innovation Framework Plan, which started to memorialize the vision for the Innovation District and also started to look at ways that we could effectively jumpstart the plan for the Innovation District in the Uptown area. And so one of the master plans that was put together started to look at those vacant surface parking lots and vacant spaces and said, how could we see new businesses, new housing within those areas that could support this vision for the Innovation District. And as you can see here, all the buildings in white are existing buildings. All the buildings in blue are either planned or could be potential. And as you can see, there's a significant amount of infill development that could be supported within this area if we are successful in achieving our vision for the Innovation District. However, as we look at this plan and look at attracting private sector investment, we also took a look at the condition of the public infrastructure within these corridors. And as you can see here, this is a picture of 17th Street. This is the existing condition. This is what most of the roads look like within the Uptown area. They were primarily designed for automobiles. They don't have any street trees on them. The lighting is maybe not as prominent as it is in other areas of the city. This doesn't support the community's vision for Innovation District or this mixed use, mixed income neighborhood. Taking that one step further, looking at the condition of the roadways in this area, these are some of the oldest roads within the city. Many of them are still brick. The average condition of the roads within this area is poor to very poor. So this is what we call a pavement conditions index, where engineers rate the condition of the road. And as you can see, most of the roads within this area are in very poor condition. And a large reason for that is because the underlying infrastructure underneath these roadways is also some of the oldest in the city. Our water lines and sanitary lines are over 145 years old in this section of the city. And they unfortunately are in a failing condition. As you can see on this graphic, 18th Street, which is an existing brick paved road or brick road, you can see the patches there of concrete that show how either the water or sanitary line in that roadway is failing and it has needed to be excavated and patched from time to time. So the roadway condition does not support this vision. Also, the vision for this district is not only to be within Uptown, it has always been envisioned to support the surrounding neighborhoods around downtown. And looking at connectivity to those neighborhoods was a major focus of this grant application. So we took a step back and said, well, how do we improve multimodal connectivity, right? Because it's not just about the automobile. A good percentage of the population within these neighborhoods surrounding downtown don't have access to an automobile. They rely on other modes of transportation like walking, biking, scooters, and transit. So as we took a look at the proposed innovation district and we looked at the neighborhoods around it, you can clearly see that, the innovation district is very well connected, at least from a road network standpoint, to downtown, Warren, Sherman neighborhood, and the Old West End. And as we started to dive a little deeper into this map, it became very clear of what the barrier was to one of the neighborhoods that we were really wanting to connect to um, the most, which was the Englewood and Junction neighborhood. And that barrier is the Interstate 75 system. This system had a significant impact on the connectivity between these neighborhoods and downtown Toledo. This is a picture from 1940, which shows all of the roads that connected into Washington Street. There are 13 connections from the Junction neighborhood into downtown from the various streets that you see here. Today, there are only four. And those four connections, two of which are on and off ramps for 75, which typically support higher vehicle speeds and aren't conducive for pedestrian or cyclist activity. So as you look at, Junction and Englewood, 13% of residents don't have access to a car or rely on other modes of transportation as they look to maybe come into this innovation district and receive skills or take job opportunities. Their options in terms of connectivity are limited. We also looked at our regional bike plan. And as you can see here, this is a kind of a fragmented series of bike trails as it exists today, but we have taken the initiative to execute portions of this bike trail network as we've had construction projects. So all of the roads in blue, or all the areas outlined in blue, are where existing bike facilities are located. As you can see here, there really is no existing bike facilities within the Englewood and Junction neighborhood right there in the middle of your screen. One of the things that we were looking to do with this project is kind of create that connection from a cyclist standpoint from those neighborhoods and into the downtown area. So that's that red line there. One thing in particular that we were very interested in doing is connecting all of the downtown, Uptown, Junction, and Englewood neighborhood into what is going to be our new $20 million YMCA at the Wayman Palmer location there. So creating a cyclist opportunity that's separate from the roadway where automobile traffic is going was an important factor as a part of this project and improving connectivity. But we aren't only looking at bikes, we're also looking at scooters. Our VO rideshare opportunity that we've hosted now for the past few years at the city has been very successful. This map shows the amount of activity that has happened within these neighborhoods and along these corridors between along Dorr Street, over the Interstate 75 and into Uptown. We believe that there's a good percentage of people that use this to access basic resources and also access jobs as they travel between the downtown area and the two neighborhoods, Englewood and the Junction. Another part of this project that we looked at was safety. How safe is it to travel these existing road networks that we have? And as we look at this map, this is a map of the high injury network throughout the city. These are some of the most dangerous roadways that we have because this is where the majority of the injuries throughout the city have occurred. And as you can see here in the middle of your screen, Monroe and Collingwood in particular are located on the high injury network. This is a map kind of focusing in there where you can see based on how red the intersections are is where there's been more injuries. And unfortunately, the blue dots represent either a serious injury or a fatality. Monroe Street is actually ranked 17th throughout the whole region as one of the most dangerous intersections in terms of the severity of crashes. And Dorr Street, as you can see, is also a high-risk corridor where we unfortunately had a recent pedestrian fatality back in 2021. So actually, as a part of TMACOG, as part of their long-range plan, it actually recommends that there be a multi-use path along Dorr Street to continue to improve the safety of pedestrians and cyclists as they navigate that corridor. We also looked, how does this compare? How does this area compare to the rest of the city? The average annual per capita cash rate is actually 5 times the city rate, as you can see here. The average annual per capita crash rate for bike and pedestrians in this area is 7 times the city rate. So you can see this, unfortunately, pedestrian and cyclist have a higher probability of being impacted as they travel through this project area that we're looking at. Connection to the surrounding neighborhoods was important, but also connection to other anchors throughout the city were also very important. We partnered with our friends at TARDA to look at existing routes within their network that traveled from the Innovation District connected to University of Toledo in particular. The Route 22 is one of the routes that connects downtown to the Museum of Art, to the University of Toledo, Westgate, and the Franklin Park Mall. So these are big nodes of activity within our community that we figured working with TARDA to create a more substantial bus stop, as you'll see here in a minute, along this corridor could help support the access that people have from and to the Innovation District from these key nodes within our community. Existing routes were one thing we looked at. We also looked at future routes. Back a few years ago, TARDA did a new comprehensive operational analysis, which looked at their entire network and made recommendations for improvement. One of the recommendations that was made was to establish a bus rapid transit along Monroe Street, which just a few weeks ago at their annual event, they provided more details about where they will be looking at Monroe Street in addition to other roads in this corridor. But Monroe Street in particular will be looked at as a potential for bus rapid transit to connect from what will be the Glass City Riverwalk all the way into the city of Sylvania. But as you can see here, several nodes of activity along Monroe Street that could support hopefully high ridership enough to look at a bus rapid transit. So in summary, we looked at a number of different things as we looked at connecting this innovation district to the larger city and area, and in particular, the neighborhoods of the Englewood and Junction neighborhoods. We looked at the safety network, we looked at the connectivity, and we also looked at the condition of the roadways that kind of connect into these additional areas. Some of the things that you'll see in the grant came directly from other community plans, primarily neighborhood plans that were done by several neighborhoods around downtown. And so I want to turn the presentation over to Ryan Bunch, who is the studio director for the Toledo Design Collective and also had the privilege of working on a number of these plans with the neighborhoods to kind of talk about what the plans in those neighborhoods had and how that helped inform the RAISE grant application that the city ultimately made. Ryan?
Yeah, thank you so much, Brandon. As Brandon mentioned, this really all of what you're going to see here really is about culminating. So if you can jump to the next slide, Brandon, we Toledo Design Collective is led in there we go. Thank you. In conjunction with neighborhood groups. So Toledo Design Collective is a nonprofit urban planning and design organization. So we've worked for several years as one way to help fill the CDC gap in our community, to really work from the neighborhood perspective to collect and document wants and needs from community members about how they want to see their neighborhoods develop and grow, what the current conditions are, what the possibilities are in the future. Three of those plans are really kind of converge here around Junction, Englewood, and Uptown. These were all done at different times, kind of had updates over the years. This process was iterative, like most engagement processes are. So some of this work started back in 2012 and has continued up until today. But the outcome of all of these plans was really a focus on Dorr Street. each and every one of them in different ways from different perspectives really recommended better connecting Dorr Street to downtown and Dorr Street really across neighborhoods. The important part of that is that, this, as Brandon mentioned, this grant is really about addressing the disparities that have come from infrastructure decisions that were made in the past, such as the placement of I-75 and the role that that's played in really kind of disconnecting and fragmenting our communities. At one point, as Brandon noted, all of these streets used to flow together. There used to be trolley tracks that went from the warehouse district directly into the Junction neighborhood, where there was an early version of the Mud Hen Stadium. These were really inherently connected neighborhoods that have a map here in our office of what the streets looked like connecting directly from Junction and Englewood into the Old West End and Uptown. This was one continuous part of our city, the way it was designed and built. And that became fragmented over time. So I think not only is this a culmination of years worth of planning and documenting what residents have stated that they want out of the community, but it's really a way of getting back to the way that our city was designed in a lot of ways in the first place. You can jump to the next one, Brandon. Uh, I think, part of that too is that not only is it those three main master plans really made heavy recommendations around the Dorr Street piece, but there's a lot of different perspectives that the city brought in here, from the community health improvement plan to the bike plan, as was noted, public transportation, connection to arts and culture. There's been a lot of planning done that's referenced these areas or these topics over time, and I think it's really fantastic that the city did their due diligence to we like to say sometimes that plans just sit on a shelf, and they do until they become actionable, right? There's good stuff in there, and people took the time out of their day to share their voice and share their wants and needs. And so when we pull those things off the shelf and really put them together, we really do start to see a dynamic picture of what our community wants. And I think this is a good representation of bringing some of that together with that transportation focus, really connecting to innovation opportunity in the future. Speaking of which, we jumped, yeah, there we go. And so, one of the things that I think about a lot is in all of our work is really where stuff is and how do you get there, right? And as we look at, we're in the middle of a kind of a once in a generation redefinition of the civic landscape here in Toledo. Things like the deindustrializing the riverfront to build a riverwalk like the Metro Parks is doing. Doesn't happen all that often, right? We're doing it this one time for the first time in 180 years. So how do we really make sure that we catalyze that and make it not just a great thing that we can invite tourists, cultural tourists, to come in and visit our city and see kind of the shiny things that we have to offer, but how do we really make that work for the next generation of kids growing up in neighborhoods? How do we make that work for people that are living here today? And not only those, kind of major infrastructure and cultural amenities, but, access to social services and health and human services. We know working in the central city neighborhoods, unfortunately, most of the disparities that we see in health, in household income, and those different types of uh, uh, zip code sort of disparities that exist in our community are in the downtown area neighborhoods. That also happens to be, because of that, where most of the social service agencies are. So access to workforce development, to financial opportunity centers, places where you can help get your credit back on track, to programs that feed children. All of these things are really concentrated largely in the Uptown area or in immediately adjacent areas. So this connectivity, not only to new developments like the Social Innovation District and the Riverwalk and all of these things that will help kind of define what our workforce and opportunities look like in the future, are great, but these things, these immediate needs that folks have today, and increasing that connectivity across these neighborhoods to make sure that people have access there is really, really important. So um, we're really excited about that connection. Uh, the other part of that is really, the reason that we live and enjoy and want to be in our neighborhoods and our community is, it's parks, it's recreation, it's places where we have um, connection to space through our connection to people, right? These are places where we build community, where we really identify kind of what the cultural sense of our neighborhood is, right? Who we are, how we do things, all of those kinds of things that make a community, a neighborhood special, are really kind of tied together in this. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is this strategy from the Forward Toledo plan, the Toledo Cultural Trail. This was a concept that was developed based on things that already exist, right? So these are artworks, these are parks, these are institutions, these are gathering places that already are kind of mapped out and existing in the community, and as well as routes that have been identified either through planning efforts or through places where people talk about where they feel safe moving, how they get primarily from one point in their neighborhood to another point. And one thing I always like to kind of note here is that it's really only 5 miles from the Museum of Art to the Great Lakes Museum, right? So we have these two really amazing cultural institutions just 5 miles apart, which is a very would not be an uncommon walk to do if you were visiting a metro park or even in another city. But we don't often think to do that, to hop on a bike or to do that walk as a leisure activity because of some of the landscape that Brandon noted earlier in the presentation, right? When things look a little bit run down or beat up, it changes our perception of how it feels to move through there. So the more we actually increase that connectivity, the more we get people moving between these opportunities to just really change the relationship with the city, get access to new information, to education opportunities, all of those kinds of those human spirit kinds of things. We actually start to develop corridors that do increase opportunities for entrepreneurship, for those small mom and pop shops to pop up. When we talk about mixed use developments and filling in some of that empty space, there's going to be storefronts available, and stuff is going to need to go in those storefronts, right? So what does that look like, and how do we really kind of use this opportunity for that community connection to elevate the culture that's unique to each neighborhood, so that those entrepreneurship opportunities can develop in that way, but also start to spread across our city. And again, when we talk about something like the Riverwalk, something that's really going to be like a cultural tourist destination, and connecting that up to the museum, again, that's bringing new people in to see our city in a different way, in to look for different kinds of goods and services. Um, the one thing I do really want to note out of this is that, a couple things. One, where we're at in this process is really about community voice, right? So we're sharing all of these things, and there's some renderings and some pictures you may have seen on the flyers and things like that. But these are just ideas, and we just really want to emphasize that, the thoughtfulness of putting all of this previous planning and engagement together, and is really about sort of translating some of those into ideas that are visuals, but really can help prompt the next set of conversations. And so we can get folks connected through the upcoming community meetings to really document what's important, what actually gets built, what actually goes into the ground. And so from there, I'll turn it back over to Brandon.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. So as Ryan mentioned, there's been an extensive amount of planning that's been done in this community over the past few years. And a lot of that work sits in those plans and waits for funding opportunities, right? And so when an opportunity becomes available at the federal or state level, we here at the city and other partners of ours work to compete based on the plans that were done. And so one of the grants that came available around the time that we applied was what's called a raise discretionary grant. This stands for Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. It's a highly competitive federal grant program through the U.S. Department of Transportation that focuses its investments on transportation um, infrastructure projects that emphasize both sustainability and equity. This program's been around since 2009. It's made substantial amount of investments, 14 billion in over a thousand projects. The minimum award is 5 million and the maximum is 25, and it does require a federal match. So just talking a little bit about what the goal is of these programs. These federal programs are very specific about what they're looking to achieve. The primary goal of the Raise Grant program, as I mentioned, is to invest in transportation projects that enhance the safety, efficiency, and quality of life for Americans. And this program is newer under the Biden administration. But this program, as I mentioned, has been around since 2009, each with a different acronym and a different name under a different administration. But the previous grant was called the Build Grant. And actually, a project that I'm sure many of us are familiar with was actually awarded a $23.6 million build grant back in 2020. So as you can see, Metro Parks was looking at, using this river walk as a transportation system to connect, over 6 neighborhoods. And as Ryan mentioned, really reclaim our riverfront for recreational purposes. But we have not applied for, to my knowledge, for other projects other than the Riverwalk project. This Raise grant that we are talking about today would be the second project that was received through this program. So as this program and its guidelines came out, we started to dream big. How much of these plans could we accomplish? And so we said, well, what would it take if we redid all of that utility infrastructure in the Uptown neighborhood, the 145-year-old sanitary and water lines, and replace them with new lines? What would it look like if we redid all 38 city blocks in Uptown to have new roadway and also streetscape improvements that were really focused from a design perspective on the pedestrian, the cyclist, and not necessarily just the automobile? Uptown has it's an urban heat island. It's arguably one of the hottest areas of the city because it lacks street trees and other forms of sustainable infrastructure that reduce heat. A large reason for that is because there's a lot of surface parking lots in the Uptown neighborhood that kind of absorb that heat and keep it there. What would it look like if we planted 1,000 trees, between the Uptown and Dorr Street neighborhoods? What would it look like if we added more lights, if we actually doubled the amount of street lights that were within that neighborhood to make it, from a perception standpoint, feel safe, feel well lit, feel like there's activity going on a regular basis? Um, we mentioned earlier that bicycle connectivity is a major focus of ours. Connecting from the Mott Branch Library to our beautiful new Wayman Palmer YMCA was a big focus of this grant application. But there remains a challenge with the Dorr Street overpass over Interstate 75. And how do we create a safer, more inviting experience for folks to travel across that? Another big focus of this application was looking at the multi-purpose path on Dorr Street, how we kind of create that infrastructure, but also honor the community's vision for a cultural trail along that corridor that tells the story of Dorr Street and honors the legacy of those two neighborhoods. And then finally, how do we connect to the rest of the city? And working with our partners at TARTA, we believe through their plans to install a bus rapid transit system potentially along Monroe Street and improve service along the Route 22 line that connects to the University of Toledo was one of the best ways that we could do that. So as a part of our application, all of these things are included. I want to just walk you through from a site perspective the areas in particular that we're focusing on and what those improvements could look like. So as you can see here, this is a map of Uptown, Englewood, and Junction. The area there in red is where the Dorr Street overpass is located, one of four connections from the Junction neighborhood into downtown. This is what it looks like today. It was recently rebuilt, as you can see, but it was built with the automobile in mind. The lanes are fairly wide. The sidewalks fairly narrow. The lights are actually located on the opposite side of the bridge where most pedestrians walk, which is on the northern part of the bridge. And there's nothing separating pedestrians or cyclists from the roadway area. So we said, well, how could we make it so someone finds this interesting and wants to walk across it? Here is a concept that we could install to increase lighting, install placemaking, add beautification by adding in concrete planters that not only separate the automobile traffic from the cyclist and the pedestrians, but also create a sense of beautification along that corridor. Again, to Ryan's point, these are all concepts of what we could do, but your input in December and in February are really going to drive what this actually looks like from an implementation standpoint. Another focus area of ours is that Monroe and 17th intersection. As I mentioned, this is one of the most dangerous intersections in the whole region. And we've got a lot of pedestrian activity that happens on this intersection. As you know, this is the home of where the Cherry Street Mission is located. As you can see, not a street tree in sight, nothing separating the pedestrians there from the automobile traffic, which travels, unfortunately, on both of these corridors at excessively high speeds because of how the roads were designed. What if we created separated bike lanes that provide access from the Dorr Street overpass all the way to Wayman Palmer, where you feel safe, like the Jefferson cycle track that we've recently installed, safe to be able to ride your bike. It also would slow traffic down, right? Because we have narrower lanes. We add in street trees and more lighting, maybe some decorative elements like decorative crosswalks like this that kind of brand the innovation district as an opportunity. The next area was looking outside the Toledo Innovation Center. So this is what it looks like today. This is Madison and 13th, so right outside the Jefferson Center, as we look to bring people to this building to get the skills or job opportunities that they need in the future. As I mentioned, our partner with TARDA was really working on thinking outside the box and creating what's called a mobility hub. This will be the first mobility hub that we have within the Toledo region. Many other cities have bus stops that are similar to this, but this will be our first outside the Innovation Center. And what this does is it not only provides protection, but will also provide real-time information through like a computer screen that shows where your bus is located, other amenities in the area. It's an elevated bus stop, so it enhances accessibility into the bus itself. So it's ADA compliant. It also provides opportunities for other modes of transportation like the scooters, the very popular scooters that I mentioned, and bicycle activity through having a station located just immediately adjacent to where the bus will pick future residents up. And then finally, another focus area, as we look at this innovation district, we mentioned it's not just about business assets, it's also about culture and nightlife. And there's no better example of that than at the Adams Street corridor, where we have a lot of grassroots businesses that have established there and really great restaurants. This really has a great culture and vibe. We have the largest zombie crawl in the world that happens along this corridor. Pride Parade happens along this corridor. There's just a lot that happens on Adams Street. Adams Street's already cool, but as you can see, the condition of the infrastructure doesn't support the community's vision for this to be the kind of the cultural hub within Toledo. And so we looked at how could we enhance the streetscape on the Adams Street corridor to not only meet that vision of being this cool cultural area with ground floor businesses and things like that, but also slow traffic down, redo the sidewalks, make it more accessible, and more inviting for future residents and visitors of this area. So as I mentioned, all of these are concepts that are really integrating the things that the grant particularly focused on, which is accessibility, safety, improving roadway conditions. But you, Toledo, will really drive what this ultimately looks like in those upcoming public engagement sessions. Cat's out of the bag. If you haven't heard, we were successful in getting a $20 million raise grant for this project. This was at the time in June of 23 the largest competitive federal grant that the city of Toledo has ever been awarded. We then beat ourselves and got a $28 million grant for the Reconnecting Communities project in East Toledo just a few months after this. But this is a huge deal for this neighborhood. That's a huge deal for the city. The project in total is 53 million, so the city is going to be providing the other part of this project, the match for this project. But I want to just talk for a second about how competitive this is, and why we believe that the federal government invested in this project. In the year that we were awarded, there were over 1,100 applications received with $15 billion of request. Only 162 grants were actually awarded, 113 of which are capital, so that's the one that we got, and $2.2 billion was awarded based on the $15 billion of requests. So we believe that we competed obviously very favorably because of the elements of this project that met the goals and vision for what the RAISE grant was looking for with accessibility, improving roadway conditions, and having a project that aligns with community and regional plans. So very excited to have been awarded this and have the confidence of the U.S. Department of Transportation to move forward with this project. Since being awarded, we've done a lot of work in getting our team assembled. So we just recently hired Tetra Tech team, which is kind of our lead project point for this project, but have also includes a number of other local Toledo-based companies as a part of the project team, like the Toledo Design Collective, which is helping with the community engagement side. But we also have, for example, the Edge Group and the Collaborative, which are going to be assisting, as you'll see at the public meetings, with the actual streetscape plans that will ultimately go into construction. So here's a picture of most of the project area. You can see most of the all of the project will be broken out into 4 phases. Construction is expected to start in 27 on phase 1. One of the reasons for the phases is because, as you can see, we are tearing up a whole neighborhood, and we wanted to make sure that the infrastructure improvements that we're making, we also were maintaining flow through the neighborhood with the least amount of impact to residents and businesses as possible. But this is a 4-year construction project. We have from now until the end of 26 to finalize our design plans so we can start construction on that. So just want to hit a little bit more on the upcoming community engagement and communication piece of this project. There are 7 projects that are 7 parts of this process that our design team is focused on. We are at the listen section of this. So you can see we're at the very beginning, a part of this 7-step process where the upcoming public meetings will help inform what the goals and objectives are of the streetscape plans. We will take the feedback from those meetings in December and develop the concepts to be reviewed with the community again in February. We'll refine those based on feedback and have final plans, hopefully shortly thereafter, that can be implemented into construction. And this just kind of breaks out that schedule in a little bit more detail. We have some hard deadlines with this project, as you can expect with a federal grant that we have to achieve. And so um, making sure that we go through this process and we receive the feedback over the next few months from as many stakeholders and community members as possible is of utmost importance to us. That's why we believe we've gone above and beyond and want to continue to do so to make sure everyone has a chance to give input in this project. And so just to kind of close, we have these three upcoming public meetings. Every property owner in the project area should have received this mailer, inviting them to the upcoming public meetings. We also encourage you to download the flyer that was put in the chat and share with your networks. As I mentioned, all of these meetings will be generally the same content. There will be a slight focus for each based on different elements of the project. So again, the meeting on December 5th at the Toledo School for the Arts will look maybe a little bit more closely at Adams Street, thinking that there's more folks from Adams Street that will attend that meeting. Mott Branch Library on December 10th will look at the Dorr Street Cultural Trail multi-purpose path. That will be a little bit more of a focus of that meeting. And then finally, on December 12th, we will look at the broader Uptown neighborhood at the Jefferson Center. Finally, we have a website with an incredible amount of detail about this project uploaded. You can find access to the city's application, all of the plans that went into forming this application. You can also sign up for updates, which is important now from a design perspective, but will also be important for construction in the future, where we intend to stay engaged with you all the way through 2031 to provide you real-time updates on construction level activity. So encourage you and anyone that you think might have an interest in receiving updates to subscribe on our website. And again, that's toledo.oh.gov /raise, RAISE. And that's the clearinghouse for all information related to the RAISE grant. So that completes our presentation. I want to thank everyone for sticking with us through this. We felt it was important to go through this presentation in detail so you as a stakeholder have the comprehensive understanding of this project and where it came from. Thank you on behalf of the city and the entire Raise Grant Project team for spending an hour with us just to learn more about this project and ways that you can engage. We wish you a very happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in December. Thank you.